This is Todd E. Braley. I am an independent filmmaker from Colorado, and you are listening to the Movie Raid Show.
It's time for the Movie Raid. Tonight's victim is director-producer Todd E. Braley. He's done Psychotic Breakdown, Shadows of the Night, which is currently on Indiegogo. Hello.
How's it going? Thanks for having me on.
Always, man. So, tell us a little bit about this. This is a paranormal horror and currently on Indiegogo, and it's raised about a little bit, slightly over $6,000 at the moment.
Shadows of the Night actually came from something that happened to myself and my family when we were younger. We had watched the televised version of The Exorcist on CBS when it aired. And for the following week after that, we had all kinds of crazy stuff happening at our house. My grandmother was visiting from out of town, and I had a conversation with my grandmother and then realized that she wasn't even in the room. My room got turned upside down when we went off to school and came home, and it kind of looked like a tornado ripped through our room, and shadows that would appear and come around corners, and then there's nobody there. So I was on another podcast a while ago with a friend of mine, Ty Guberman, who's also one of the producers and a co-writer on Shadows of the Night. And somehow in the conversation, that situation got brought up, and the guy that was the host of the show said, wow, that sounds like that would make a really scary movie. And so I thought about it, and I thought, how can I do this and bring it into the modern day, and came up with the idea of, using the internet and the dark web, be able to use that story, because obviously you can't remake it because you can't use The Exorcist. I just thought, let's do something different. And so the movie centers around a teenage girl who's a wannabe computer hacker. A friend of hers, who's also one of the wannabe hackers, tells her about this website on the dark web. She goes in there and watches this exorcism video, and then what happens is she winds up bringing back an evil spirit from that website into our realm, and now her and her grandmother are working, because her grandmother's a psychic, and the grandmother is played by Deborah Lamb of RoboCop and Point Break, and they have to try and send that evil spirit back. And there's all kinds of twists and turns going on through the story as they're trying to make that happen.
Can you tell us a little bit on who else might be in this movie? Now, first of all, you've got a very talented Bill Oberst Jr., Harley Wallen, and his wife as well.
Yeah. Katie and Harley Wallen, and why don't we say they just came onto the project recently. And then we have Bill Oberst Jr. again. We have Deborah Lamb, and then we have some local actors. Alexandria Allerheiligen will be playing the character of Angela, who is the young teenager's mom. Michael Oliver from Texas, he's coming up here, and he's going to be playing Father Timothy Campbell. We also have Lillian Davis, who's got some stage plays under her belt. She's 13 years old, and she's never done a movie before. I did a audition with her, and she did a hell of a job. And in her audition, one of her friends that's in her drama department, Alyssa Ramirez, is going to be playing her best friend, Jackie. Kazuo Salazar, who's another local actor here in Grand Junction, he's going to be playing Father Ryan Pete Goldthwait, who's a newbie to film but has been doing stage for 40 years. He's going to be playing Father Benchley. We have a pretty good cast of characters. We got a handful of other people too that are going to be a part of it. We're just looking forward to getting this movie done. It's going to be scary in a way that I think a lot of people will look at, and turning the light off at night is going to be rough after this one.
There's a lot of films that have, especially in the horror genre, there are so many films that have good concepts, fun concepts, but there are other ones that, they kind of overlap each other. Do you believe that there's such thing as over-concepting, layering, and existing concepts by adding their own variants and selling that off? Do you believe that there doing too much of that in the indie horror today?
For me, I think a lot of the stuff that the indie filmmakers that they're not doing is they're not thinking about storylines, and they're not thinking about character development. A lot of people will say, well, but it's a horror movie. I'm an old dude. I'm 59 years old, and if you go back and look at horror movies from the 70s, 80s, and even the 90s, there's character development, there's storylines, and I think people have kind of foregone that to just try to gross you out. Horror used to be about being scared, throwing a little blood in there once in a while. Now it's about no storyline and it's all gore, and that's not scary. And I think when people come up with ideas, I feel like the originality isn't there. The reason we got lucky and have so many people that have come on board with this thing is because they're all like, wow, I've never heard of something like this before. And even if some people go, well, I've heard of it before, I always try to do something with all of my projects, whether it's horror or dramatic films or whatever, to put a little spin on it and do something that maybe hasn't been done. And I'm also careful about the names that I choose for my films too. So I'll sit and think about the names of my movies. I'll go on IMDb and I'll just sit there and I'll come up with like 10 names for a movie, and I'll type every one of those names. And the ones, if it doesn't come up at all, then boom, that's the name of the movie. If it comes up and there's only one other movie and it was from a long time ago, then I'll go with that.
Do you feel that they use more of that angle than just the concept? Like, oftentimes concept is usually the important aspect and element, but when they just have an angle like nudity, gore, those are givens. The audience is going to love that. But then it's like a continuous train. Then it's in both realms, not just indie. It's in major film studios and everything.
I just think that they rely on that shit too much. And people will say, well, that sells. Well, that's good. That can only be sustained for so long before everybody's like, okay, here comes another one of those. Okay, here comes another one of those. I think it's relied on too much, and I think people need to start getting a little creative. Hollywood has buried itself, in my opinion. I am not a fan of Hollywood for a couple of reasons. One is because I worked there. I worked in Hollywood for 5.5 years when I lived in California, and it put me off making movies for like 10 years. And I just feel that they're not thinking about quality anymore. It's about quantity. You look at Marvel and how they kind of burned themselves out by giving us way too much, and most of it was garbage. If they would have just taken their time on things and instead of trying to do too much too soon. And I saw that coming. I saw that coming when they started, especially after Disney bought them. I thought they're screwed at that point, and I was right.
Indie filmmakers release many same genre films, whether it's horror, whether it's whatever it might be, dramatic and so forth. Some are successful, and some that may not be as successful or may not just have got its own niche yet. But do you feel that the quantity of that same genre film they release can they actually change the quality of the future of their releases too?
Oh yeah, I think quality over quantity. And people get burned out on it. Horror was burned out in the early 90s until we got Scream. And when Wes Craven released Scream, that kind of rejuvenated the whole horror genre and kicked things back into gear. But then we got too many of the same thing, and it burned it out again. People need to be creative. I think Hollywood needs to stop worrying about the big dollar and start worrying about getting creative writing in there. Nobody wants to take any chances. That's the one thing. John Milius, the writer and director of the original Red Dawn and Conan the Barbarian, he was also one of the writers on Apocalypse Now. He said that studio executives are not known for their courage, and it's even more so now because it's not about giving quality work. It's not giving us quality films. You get a handful every so often, especially in the last 3 or 4 years. Just there hasn't been good movies to watch outside of, a lot of people may argue with me on this one, but Dune is amazing. I'm fixing to go see the second one. For me, that's like the only real good movie project that's come out in the last 3 or 4 years. There hasn't really been anything that I've watched and went, wow, that's memorable. It's like you can't even remember the quality of the films, and the writing is just shit these days. I just really feel that people need to start being creative again. Let those creative juices flow. And, we want to make our money back, but God damn it, do something different. Give us something different that is original. Some people will say there's no original ideas anymore. Yeah, there are. You just got to think about it for a little bit.
And a large portion of that is you can look at the indie film community because there's a lot of great concepts and they're just not going anywhere because all this is going on. Remakes, reboots, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Do you feel that the indie community is losing opportunity? And you yourself is a director and producer and have been in charge of many things throughout your career as well. Do you also feel responsible for some of that opportunity within this realm to help them get that opportunity out there as well? Or do you feel that the better opportunity is within this realm and this is where the most recognizable opportunities can actually generate?
Well, I think that the indie community really needs to like pull their head out of the collective ass and start working together. First off, what has to happen there is working together. I hate to say it, but film festivals have really created a real block with indie filmmakers. When I was younger, filmmakers working together was the norm. Everybody wants to be famous, you know, everybody wants to get into Hollywood, but we don't need Hollywood anymore. We have all these streaming platforms. If we would work together to create good stories, to create good movies, and not put out some of the shit that indie filmmakers put out. I mean, you don't need to have hundreds of thousands of dollars to make a good movie anymore. You can do it on 50 grand and put good work out there. I think the indie film industry is almost scared that they don't want to create their own niche and everybody still wants to get into Hollywood. And Hollywood is, to be honest, in my personal opinion, Hollywood died a year ago. We need to, as an indie film community, rally together and get out there and work together instead of working in competition, because everybody feel like this is a competition. Everybody's vying because everybody wants to be a part of Hollywood or they want to be famous or whatever. How about just making good movies that people will watch? That is a thing. You know, we've already seen when you put out garbage films with garbage writing or putting some kind of like political twist on your movies, nobody gives a shit. Marvel has failed with their last 3 or 4 films that they put and failed hard. Indiana Jones was a bust. All of these high dollar movies are never going to make their money back. And the indie film community needs to take hold of the fact that we now have the audience. If we're going to, fuck around and try to fight each other instead of trying to band together and get out there and get our movies out there for people to watch and give them good quality stuff, at least give us a good story. I mean, I don't know about you, Mike. I can look past bad acting at a point as long as the story is good. You know, maybe not everybody in the cast is a great actor, but I can look past that if the story is good. So I feel like if everybody kind of just starts creating good quality stuff, Hollywood could go away. I'm okay with that. I've worked in Hollywood. I know exactly how everything runs. I know exactly how it works. And believe me, most people out there, unless you don't have any kind of morals, you would not want to be a part of Hollywood. You couldn't pay me to go back. We have an opportunity, and if we don't take it, we're stupid for not grabbing a hold of it.
And there's endless bounds of it, and there's always all kinds of different revenues, and there's, of course, the whole pay-to-play and all this other stuff that filmmakers are willing to do to that extent. Do you think that a lot of these opportunities that are not as great when it comes to pay-to-play and all this other stuff, that it actually clouds the creativity, and they're just kind of just assembly lining their work, and also even using the audience as a mere cog in the wheel? Do you feel that they're almost like a leverage against that on some of these aspects that they're trying to get their movies out there and not actually doing what they should be doing, is creating and captivating the audience rather than going against it?
The biggest problems is the pay-to-play thing. I've never been a fan of that. Again, because I worked in Hollywood, I know how it runs. And, when somebody says, oh, man, when I get that directing gig and I start being able to do stuff and I get my big break in Hollywood, it's like you understand that literally once you get your quote-unquote big break in Hollywood, you are no longer allowed to be creative. You have a whole slew of people behind you that are going to tell you exactly what to do and how to do it. Nobody can get away from that. Even Spielberg can't get away from that. He can only go so far before the people in the suit above him are going to go, well, no, I think we need to do this, and blah, 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 blah. If indie filmmakers would just stop worrying about being famous and start worrying about being creative. And that doesn't mean you have to be the artsy-fartsy filmmakers. And I think those are the other problems, too, is the ones that are all artsy-fartsy about it. It's like, just come up with a good story. Get some, decent actors in there, and people will watch your movies. I mean, I've made some pretty good money off of some of the films that I've made. Actually made pretty good money off of most of the films I've made. And the most that I've spent up to this point was $16,000 on a movie. And I've made that money back and then some off of that one movie. And it's because it was a good story, and it had pretty decent actors in it. And I took the time to make it look good, to make sure the sound was good, to make sure the quality was there. I really think that you're stifling yourself by thinking that trying to be famous versus trying to put out good quality work. The other stuff will come with being creative to tell good stories and people want to watch them.
It's nothing wrong about brand, but the identity of art is becoming separated and almost becoming phased out, and it's more about brand within these indie filmmakers. Like, keep following the same path. Do you feel like as we keep going further into the future, like, this is becoming more and more bleak with just the community itself? And again, with just pockets of good things, like, there's good work out there, but as these other filmmakers are continuing with this so-called algorithm and routine of things, do you feel that it's more purely about brand and less identity of that artist?
Social media has kind of ruined that, in the fact that you're looking at followers. Instead of, again, thinking about the work, people are thinking about how they look, how they come across. Am I saying the right things? Am I saying the wrong things? The brand is important, but again, it comes back, I'll beat the dead horse with it, you got to have quality work. The brand can come as you're going. You can build your brand as you're building your work. Without having quality work, your brand don't mean shit. If you don't have halfway decent work, if somebody looks at that and it looks like a 5-year-old made it, your brand don't mean anything. It's one of those things that I feel like people really need to pay attention to the work, and everything else will come.
Now, as far as the investing goes, do you feel like it's more of when to invest, not exactly what to invest?
I don't think there's a right time or a wrong time when it comes to filmmaking, because, again, it comes back to the quality of the project that you're doing. The Shadows of the Night, just as an example, is going to be a very scary movie. Now, I'm not doing it because I'm not investing my time into it, because I think that because it's a good scary story and there's a lot of horror stuff coming out right now, I don't think of it that way. I think of it with the fact that the storyline is something different. And okay, I guess I will say it's a little bit of an investment in time, because there's so much crap out there that this is a good time to invest in a story that is going a different direction instead of everything that follows that has, and everybody's doing the same thing, because everybody's not doing the same thing right now in regards to that. As far as investing money, it's a matter of the quality of the story. Do people believe when you talk to them about your project? First of all, how you're presenting it is a matter of whether or not people want to be involved, how much energy you're putting into the project. And again, then it's the quality of what you're doing that you have the thought process that getting people to invest their money and their time, it's going to be well worth it, that you're not giving them something that's already been done a zillion times. Maybe something like this has been done. If you look at Insidious, that's kind of one of those movies. A lot of people shit on the Insidious movies, but to this day, I will watch the first 4 Insidious movies on a rotating basis, because they scare the hell out of me. And not that it's something that can happen, but the way they put them together, they're pretty fucking scary movies. And the Conjuring movies, obviously, it's all kind of the same producers within the same circle of people. And the Conjuring movies are scary too. That's the kind of the thing that I really think about and rally around. It's like I want people to jump out of their chairs. And that is one of the things that I said in our Indiegogo pitch video, is that I bank my existence on the fact that this movie is going to scare the shit out of you. That's why you should invest, because this is going to be one of those movies where popcorn is going to be flying. You're going to jump up off the couch. You're not going to want to turn the lights off when you're going down the hallway to go to bed. There's no really any special time. It all comes down to the project. I guess you could say timing, but not a special time. I never think that way. To me, it's like, I've got this movie idea. I really like it. I'm running with it. Are you coming? Because if you're not coming, I'm going to leave you behind, because I'm going to be running to do whatever I got to do to get this movie made.
Go ahead and plug in any websites or anything that you care to add along with this. And again, tell us a little bit where to possibly invest within Shadows of the Night and so forth.
Well, for anybody out there, we have our current Indiegogo that's now in demand. We already made over $6,000 in less than 3 days. And so if you'd like to go to the Indiegogo website, go to Indiegogo.com and then type in Shadows of the Night in the search, and that'll take you right to the site. If anybody wants to invest their dollars into this and that are looking for a return, they can just contact me at, well, let me say, you say Infinity Media Prods, short for productions, Infinity Media Prods, P as in Paul, RODS, at gmail.com, and hit me up there, or find me on Facebook, Todd, Ernest, Braley, and I'll be more than willing to talk to anybody about invest. We do have a couple of actual investors in Shadows of the Night. We're trying to raise additional funding for locations and some additional actors and equipment.
Well, very cool, man. Very cool. And there you have it, everybody. That is Todd E. Braley.